Like, why you got Sack and Juvie tatted on you? They not dead. I'd never get nobody on my skin who ain't gone yet. Then 2 days later, both of them end up dead. So, which one were you closest with? Both of them. Every last one. YNW Melly's whole case just got flipped upside down because a close homie finally leaked that late-night murder footage. And what he put out there is nothing light. The streets got questions, the internet is shaking, and this new clip might change everything we thought we knew about that night. Let's dive into the details of this bombshell that just dropped. These leaked videos came out in November 2025, featuring Jacoby Mills, a close associate who was there that night, and they're giving us the most detailed inside view we've ever had of what really happened when Sackchaser and Juvie got killed. But this ain't some shaky phone video of the actual shooting. It's raw, uncut interrogation footage that's got the hood talking and the internet going absolutely crazy. I already know my end, dead and gone. I already know what y'all here for. Well, just, which one were you close with? Both of them. Every last one. You grow up with them? Every last one of them. No cap, this footage is hitting different. This hits different because Mills was actually out there that night, sitting in the red car behind the Jeep where the killings allegedly went down. This isn't some third-hand story or barbershop gossip. It's direct, first-hand testimony from somebody in the camp, a dude who knew everyone involved and watched the situation unfold from the inside. But to really see why this footage is blowing up all over social media, we gotta lay out the base of this whole case that's had the streets locked in for more than 6 years. It all traces back to October 26, 2018, when two young up-and-coming rappers, Anthony, YNW Sackchaser, Williams and Christopher, YNW Juvie, Thomas Jr., were found dead in a Jeep Cherokee at Memorial Hospital in Miramar. YNW Melly, real name Jamel Demons, wasn't just some random street dude either. He was one of their closest friends, part of the same YNW crew that had been grinding together in the Florida rap game, trying to build something from the ground up. These weren't supposed to be enemies. They were supposed to be brothers who rode for each other through everything. The first version of events that came out was that Cortland, YNW Bortland, Henry drove the victims to the hospital after a random drive-by lit up their car. On the surface, it looked like another tragic story of young black men caught up in senseless gunplay, the kind of thing that happens way too often in our communities. But once investigators started peeling back the layers, the whole story began to crumble faster than a house of cards in a storm. The forensic evidence painted a picture completely different from that original report. Instead of bullets coming from outside the vehicle like you'd expect in a drive-by, the autopsies showed both victims were shot from inside the Jeep. On top of that, the bullet paths suggested the shots came from the exact spot where Melly was allegedly sitting. Let me break it down, because this is where it gets crazy. The state's theory is that around 1 a.m. on October 26, 2018, 8 guys pulled up to New Era Recording Studio in Fort Lauderdale to work on music. Nothing strange about that. Studios stay active late with hungry artists putting in work. But according to what's in that leaked footage, the energy was off from the start. Mills says everybody was acting different, not like their usual selves. Sackchaser was supposedly extra aggressive, even smacking people for nodding off during the session. The vibe was toxic, the session wasn't productive, and by 3:19 a.m., everyone agreed to shut it down and head out. That's where the timing gets crucial. The group split into 2 cars. 4 jumped into a red Mitsubishi SUV, Trevian Glass, Dentavia Southers, Jacoby Mills, and Adrian Davis. The other 4 loaded into a gray Jeep Cherokee, with Cortland Henry driving, Anthony Williams in the front passenger seat, Christopher Thomas in the rear passenger spot, and Jamel, YNW Melly, Demons in the back driver's side seat. Surveillance cameras caught both rides taking the same route at first, I-95 south to 595, then across to I-75 south, and down toward Miramar Parkway. At that point, everything still looked normal. 2 cars full of tired dudes heading home after a long night. Then it turns dark. At 184th Avenue, the red Mitsubishi kept going south and was seen on camera going through the guard gate at Sunset Lakes around 3:50 a.m., That's the gated community where most of them stayed. But the gray Jeep never appeared on that footage. Later, cell phone location data showed the Jeep actually went north instead. So where did it head? That's where the story gets straight up chilling. The Jeep went north on 184th to Pines Boulevard, then west all the way out toward the edge of the Everglades. Empty, pitch black territory where nobody would be around to see anything. From there, it traveled south on US 27 and made a left onto Pembroke Road, a dead-end road that stops at a trash facility. According to the cell records, it was at that lonely spot around 4:02 a.m. that the killings allegedly went down. And here's the part that makes this whole thing completely insane. When cops checked the entire stretch of Miramar Parkway where the so-called drive-by was supposed to happen, they came up empty. No shell casings, no broken glass, no bullet holes, no skid marks. Literally zero physical proof that any drive-by ever took place there. At the same time, the medical examiner testified that by the time this drive-by was allegedly staged at 4:02 a.m., both victims were already dead. The extra gunshot wounds that matched outside fire were post-mortem, meaning they were added after the fact, once the victims had already been killed by shots fired inside the Jeep. Let that marinate for a second. Based on the prosecution's version, Melly and Bortland didn't just murder their own people. They allegedly ran a whole cover-up, riding around with corpses in the car and then blasting the vehicle from the outside to fake a random drive-by. That's ice-cold, calculated stuff, way past a simple argument that went too far. And the state didn't stop there. They brought in Instagram DMs where somebody asked Melly about the deaths and he allegedly replied, "I did that." They also argued that Melly had ties to the G-Shine blood set and that just 2 days before the murders, he was learning the gang's loyalty oath. The first trial ended in a mistrial back in July 2023 because the jury couldn't agree on a unanimous verdict. Since then, the retrial's been pushed back multiple times and is now set for January 2027. Melly's been sitting in jail for more than 6 years without a conviction, while his co-defendant Bortland took a plea deal in October 2025 on accessory charges. And that's exactly why these leaked tapes are such a huge deal. They feature Jacoby Mills, also known as Cortez Teasy, described as Bortland's blood cousin and one of the guys riding in the red car that night. So he was close enough to know what was really happening, but just far enough out of the main action to still be around to talk. These videos were recorded in January 2019, only a few months after the murders and before most of the case details hit the public. That timing matters a lot, because it means Mills was talking about stuff that wouldn't become public knowledge for years, which makes his statements look a lot more believable to some people. The fact that this footage is only now popping up in November 2025, right as the retrial is being set up, raises big questions about why and why now. Is somebody dropping these clips on purpose to sway public opinion? Do they tie into the civil wrongful death suits that are still active? Or did they just leak as part of discovery in some other connected case? The hip-hop world's reaction has been nuclear, with everybody from DJ academics to random Twitter users chiming in on what this all means. The streets are split. Some folks are calling this the smoking gun that proves Melly's guilty. Others say Mills is a rat who's breaking the code to save himself. What makes it even messier is that Mills keeps denying he's snitching throughout the interrogation, claiming he's only trying to look out for his people. But the level of detail he gives is so sharp and so damaging that it's hard to see how it helps anyone except the DA. Mills basically unloads everything, the wildest confession hip-hop has seen in years. Now we're back, and it's about to get crazy. If you thought part 1 was nuts, strap in, because we're diving deep into exactly what Jacoby Mills said in that room. This footage is more explosive than anything the culture's seen in a long time. Dude practically outlines the whole play-by-play of what allegedly happened that night, and some of the specifics are so precise they'll send chills down your spine. Mills starts by giving a minute-by-minute breakdown of the studio session. From the jump, you can tell the vibe was off. He says they pulled up to New Era recording studio around midnight, but instead of that usual hungry, grinding energy, everybody was exhausted and nodding off. And in the hood, studio time ain't cheap. You don't waste it unless something serious is weighing on people. Here's where his story really starts to heat up. Mills portrays Sackchaser as this aggressive, controlling presence in the room, slapping people for falling asleep during the session. If you understand street dynamics, you know, when someone is disrespecting folks in front of the whole crew like that, pressure is building toward major conflict. Mills calls Sackchaser crazy and says he had a history of violence, which lines up with other reports about long-running tension in the group over money and control. He pulled that gun on, Mills starts, hinting that Sackchaser had even upped a gun on him before. Then we hear about 5:30 that morning, someone's mom calling out of work, then calling again. Wait, stop, don't say it. One voice cuts in, referring to what she allegedly told Mariah, who then repeated it, that Jamie, Melly's mom, had called around 8, and that Melly himself had reached out to her at about 5:30 that morning. This next part ties into something that's been buzzing in the streets for years but never officially confirmed: the money issues that allegedly played a role in these murders. In the leaked audio, multiple voices talk about a major dispute over a record deal supposedly worth several $100,000. Sackchaser is said to have believed he was basically the CEO of YNW, and that he deserved half of everything Melly earned. Mills then lays out the seating arrangement that night, which he says is crucial to understanding what happened. According to him, in the Jeep it was Bortland behind the wheel, Sackchaser in the front passenger seat, Melly sitting directly behind Bortland, and Juvie behind Sackchaser. Mills himself was in the red car, with Tay driving, Fetty riding shotgun, and Adrian Davis in the back. Here's the detail that he says still gives him chills. Mills claims he first tried to get into the Jeep, but felt like something, whether you call it God, fate, or just gut instinct, stopped him from doing it. Whether you see that as divine intervention or street intuition, it suggests he sensed something was off with that group. He also says Juvie grabbed guns from the studio before they left, and that Melly was carrying a brown shoulder bag that supposedly had a firearm inside. All of this lines up neatly with the prosecution's argument that this wasn't a heat-of-the-moment fight, but a planned hit. Then things get even darker. Mills says when they got back to the house in Sunset Lakes, they sat outside for around half an hour because nobody had keys. Eventually, most of the group went inside and crashed. But at about 4 a.m., Mills gets a terrifying call from his mom. She tells him someone just called and threatened. "Y'all all dead." Think about that. A mother getting a late-night warning that her son and his whole crew are in danger. That's not regular label drama. This is deep street politics.